This is becoming a pattern, an alarming one for the 49ers. And it's with Mike Evans. He is once again being held out of practice with an injury. This time it's a new one. Before, he had a quad that was hampering him, took him out for like a handful of practices. I think it was like 5 or 6. Then he ended up practicing a couple times, and then he got gimpy with his ankle and then his quad again. But today, on Tuesday, as I'm recording this, and it's when it got reported, Evans is now dealing with a groin injury. So you have a quad, a slight re-aggravation of your quad, and it's your groin, which number one makes you think, okay, were you compensating because you weren't 100% healthy from your quad? Or is this because it's obvious? The evidence, the most predictable thing is you're an older guy who's going to have these soft tissue muscular injuries. And my creation of this video is pretty much simple, is when are we going to start hitting the panic button, or at least have pressuring or heavy concern or just something with Evans? Because I personally have been that way for the last couple of weeks, ever since these quad injuries started popping up for him. Because Evans is a guy who the 49ers, while they didn't sign him to a heavy contract, which is great, thank goodness, because if it's true that his body starts breaking down, that they can just get out from under it after the 2026 season. But seeing this pattern where he can't get more through a handful of practices without coming up gimpy or hurts, because the number one thing is positive, right? Because it's not a significant injury, right? He's not going to miss week 1. It's not going to derail his season. You know, these are like, okay, these are whatever injuries, right? It's just going to hold him out for a little bit. But it's the hit rate, it's the pattern, it's the trend that he keeps following, where it's like, hey, a couple practices, he's hurt. More practices, he's hurt again. Soft tissue, quad injury. You know, last year was his hamstring. He doesn't really have a history of his hamstring holding him out of games or derailing his season, but that was younger Mike Evans. He's 33 now, entering his 13th season. It's going to be time. It's going to be time for him to his body be like, hey, look here, Big Mike, we can't keep doing this, you know? Because, look, if he can't even get through a handful of practices without coming up gimpy or hampered with some type of muscular injuries, what the hell do you think is going to happen when you start going through week 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, especially on Thursday night games when you have these, obviously, games are way more taxing and put a physical strain and stress on a player's body. If it's not working out for his practice, when it's not as hard, it's not as strenuous, imagine what's going to happen, by the time midseason comes, or hell, maybe even week 3 or 4 is enough for him to start feeling the rigors of the season, and he struggles to practice more than once a week, or even starts missing multiple games. Because the way this keeps going, and just the feel and the foreshadowing of this with Evans is, I feel like he's going to play 11 games or less. I'd be more willing to bet on that he's going to miss under 11 games than he's going to have over 11 games if we're playing over under. And look, this has been predictable. I've written about it. I've said about it. Like, it shouldn't surprise anyone if Mike Evans if his body just starts to break down. He has a lot of miles on his engine. He has a lot of wear and tear. It makes sense. So for him to be like anywhere close to the same player he was like 2, 3, 4 years ago was not reality. And for him to be as healthy as he once was also kind of like, what do the 49ers think they're getting here? They kind of put a lot of their chips on their table on Evans being the guy who's going to be a significant factor to help them ascend, especially get those breakthroughs, make them break through against tough defenses like the Seattle Seahawks, right? Because those were the team that punked them the most, especially when it comes to the passing game. And it was because they were lacking a true number 1 wide receiver. Evans still fits that. It's just, you just got to look at it like, how reliable is he going to be this year? Because the signs are there. This is now a second time, or I guess third, depending if you want to consider that little minor aggravation that he had that held him out for like another practice or 2. So, and maybe today is just precautionary for sure. It's like, okay, you know what? There's some tightness. We're feeling it. Even if it's just a slight needle mover of concern, we're just going to hold you out the rest of the week, man, because we just need to keep you clean and healthy for the regular season. And I get that. You know, if anyone doesn't need that much practice, it's going to be a veteran like him. But I do kind of push back on that to a degree, because you need that rapport with Brock Purdy. Yeah, I sound like a broken record here. You need that rapport with your new quarterback. Purdy, your new wide receiver, your new number 1 wide receiver. Because now what's going to happen is you're going to spend quality game reps that are crucial and that matter to trying to get that connection down. And maybe they do hit the ground running. It's all fine and dandy. Cool. I think that's a little unlikely. I'm sure it's at a sufficient level, but it would not surprise me. In fact, I'm expecting there to be some misses where these guys are not on the same page in terms of route depth, in terms of way Purdy's trying to throw it, where Mike Evans is sitting based on the coverage. It's there's a lot of various factors here, and it really, the way you hash that out and, knock the kinks off is training camp. That's the time where you mess up and figure out, like, okay, well, this is where our connection is building strong. But now that you got to go and use and waste perfect game reps, this is going to limit your offense to a degree, maybe for only the first few games or maybe until midseason. But either way, it would have been way better if, like, Evans didn't miss this many practices by now, because now it's going to be another week of practice he misses. And now you're not really at a great level with your connection, I would imagine. Maybe a decent one, but it's like, I can't really rely on him. I can't really do that. I mean, connection rapport does matter, and this is where you spend all that time. Because when practice does happen during the regular season, you're not working on, your connection with your receivers. Maybe that's just happens to be part of what helps you build it, because you're executing the game plan for that week that the coach, that Kyle Shanahan wants. But other than that, like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a little tough. And I guess you hope that, given the talent of Purdy and the professionalism and talent of Evans, of both of these players, that, okay, like, it won't take them that long. But still, it would be a lot better and obviously way more of an ideal and optimal situation if they had that out. But because he keeps getting hurt, he keeps having to miss time due to these little injuries, these little knickknacks, whatever you want to call them, little scuffles, little scuffs, a little dirt on his white shirt, whatever, that it's going to limit them to a degree. And I'm not saying all this to be like, oh, God, we're in danger, it's screwed, but it's something to start worrying a little bit about and to monitor, because, again, like, how do you have a player who can't even make it through some practices when it's, I get it's intense, but it's nowhere near intense as it would be for an actual regular season game. And Evans hasn't really been a player who misses, like, with multiple soft tissue muscular injuries like this in the past. So it bars bringing it up. It warrants that, look, 33-year-old guy, 13, 14 years in the league. This sounds about right. And, don't be surprised if he struggles to suit up a lot of games, or if he plays through pain, and he's limited, and you only get to see him with 3 targets, but he's not really making that much of an impact as you hoped. I think that's the reality where 49er fans, you just need to start, like, accepting or expecting. And at that point, if all this was just, okay, this was just training camp exclusive where he was hurt and now he's fine and he's making great impact, and it feels like it's great again, because the excitement from when they first signed him in March, it should be slowly dwindling. It feels like it's slowly dwindling, and I'm getting the sense, too, whenever time I tweet and write, and it's like, yeah, like, what's up with this guy? Can we, like, just put bubble wrap on him? Can we just keep him secure? What's going on? And I think we should all know what's going on. Again, older player, a lot of miles on the tires on that tank. Makes sense. So I think now, your 49ers, bubble wrap him to Kingdom Come. Limit him as much as possible, because at this point he hasn't shown you have no reason to believe that him coming back next week, he's going to handle those 2 weeks of practices in the lead up to that week 1 game in Australia. And heck, even though this is a minor injury, who's to say, like, when after his 3rd or 4th practice comes back, he doesn't get hurt again? Like, like, what's going on? Like, we can't do this. And then you got other players hurt, as Chris McCaffrey tightness, but it turns out it was fine. Nick Bosa, like, all this weirdness. And speaking of wide receivers, Jacob Cowing, who had that nice flashy punt return touchdown, he has a groin injury, and he's not going to play in the preseason finale. This is all just... It just all goes back to, like, man, what is going on over there? Training staff, are you doing enough? Are you brushing these guys back? Are you making sure that you have the right program, the right approach, the right structure to make sure they're handling themselves after these games, after these practices? Like, what's the deal? It's too often. But at least with Evans, we know, like, you know what? Maybe it is a training staff, but maybe it's also just because where he's at in his career. This would not be shocking. I just think now that in terms of envisioning what he looks like in the offense, and this whole, like, man, it's going to be a great year for him, for the 49ers offense. They're here together. That's probably just not going to be it anymore. Because how can you trust someone or get so excited for a guy who can't even make it through a handful of practices in training camp? Because once he gets to that handful, it's like, oh, he's quad. Oh, we got a groin. At this point, you almost feel like you're better off keeping Evans as just a specialist on your offense or a red zone. and just don't even run him out there for anything else. It's getting to that point where this is going to look almost like a failure sighting. It feels like the writing's on the wall and we're heading there, and I kind of feel more expected of that to happen. But obviously, it's not like I want that to happen. It's just, look what we're seeing. Would love nothing more for Evans to be healthy, because the 49ers would be a very fun offense to watch with him in it. But I just don't think we're going to get that for more than, speaking of handful of practices, more than a handful of games, because I think he's going to spend a lot of time missed or compromised that is going to limit him to be the truly impactful player that the 49ers envisioned they were getting when they signed him back in March.